So, we've talked about what media literacy is, why it's important, the history of disinformation, and some current examples. If you missed either of our first 2 videos, I encourage you to visit our YouTube channel or our Facebook page and watch those first. Today, we are going to talk about how disinformation works and is spread. So disinformation plays on our emotions, particularly anger and fear. So this adds a sense of urgency, and it can be communicated through all caps, exclamation points, through images, or exaggerated and inflammatory language. This urgency makes us just want to click share rather than take the time to think critically about where this information came from and whether or not it's true and worth sharing. Disinformation thrives on this urgency. Another way that disinformation hooks us is through a patina of credibility. In other words, there's just a little bit of truth in the lie. So for example, a post or a tweet or a meme might kind of look real with names of fake organizations that seem familiar, or real people's names that are just slightly misspelled. They might include references to people and events that are also being talked about in credible news sources. Bots also work hard to get us to subscribe to fraudulent news. So bots are computer-generated users designed to appear as real users. They can increase engagement through likes, comments, or shares, and that makes it look like the idea or the story that they're promoting is both urgent and credible. Disinformation is sneaky. There was a study done where people were shown true and false headlines and news stories, so they were told upon this first encounter with that source whether it was true or false. They were then distracted for a time and shown the headlines again. When asked at the end which stories were true, some of the people studied included some of those familiar but false stories that they had seen repeatedly. So this is the illusory truth effect. Every time a lie is repeated, it appears slightly more plausible. So we should also be wary of our own confirmation bias. This is our very human tendency, so we all struggle with it, to seek out sources of information that support our own beliefs. Again, if we're agreeing with everything we're seeing pop up in our social media world, that might be something we should be concerned about. Now that we're a little more familiar with how disinformation works, let's walk through the phases of how it's spread. So of course it begins with creation. An article is conceived of by an unidentified person. For example, in 2016, there was an article that the Pope had endorsed Donald Trump in his run for presidency. So creation moves naturally into production. In this example, the website that originally published this story was a news hoax website, WTOE5 News, part of a network of 43 fabricated news sites which published over 750 articles. So next, it moves on into distribution. This article is shared on Facebook by someone working for this network of fabricated sites. So this is still information. It is still being spread with the intention to deceive. Finally, reproduction begins. The article is shared by people connected to the fabricated news site network to amplify the impact of the article to make more profit. The article then might get shared on Facebook by Trump supporters, forces who had an interest in him winning, like the Russian troll factories and bot networks. It might also have been shared by Hillary Clinton supporters to prove how easy it is to fool Trump supporters. So during this final stage, we have now moved into the territory of misinformation, so these false stories are now being shared by real people unaware that the story they're sharing is false. So join me next time and we'll look into the basics of ethical journalism.